Good afternoon, John Donovan,
Good afternoon, Marty Keller.
and good afternoon to those of you tuning into the Intentional Living podcast, where we talk about looking at patterns of behavior that we find ourselves stuck with. It seems to be stuck with. Uh, we might be engaging in some conversation or some relational behavior with somebody, and we have that little voice in the head saying, "Don't go there," and we go there anyway. Or
Yeah,
conversely, we may have a voice in our head saying, uh, you, there's something I need to be doing and I don't do it. And so we call this patterns of behavior that are compulsive. And we're working here in the Intentional Living podcast and in the Intentional Living work on not merely demystifying this behavior, but making it part of ourselves, befriending it in such a way that we can use the energy that created it, the source, the creative source that generated those patterns of behavior, usually as the result of childhood trauma and years of repetitive behaviors, to change them
right,
into something that we say we want instead. And
right.
that's
It
the
is, and for me, it's recognizing a behavior that is used to avoid something uh, like intimacy or um, conversation, and I'm avoiding it because in my childhood, intimacy and dialogue were usually about attack or right, wrong, good, bad, and I was always on the wrong side of whatever it was. It was my perception. So yeah, and it gets reinforced, and I find myself in that pattern, and it doesn't work as an adult, and I know it. Then I know what I want. Like I want to be kind. I want to listen. I want to talk. I want to whatever is share my feelings. Of course, that never really entered my mind till way into my recovery. Do I want to share my feelings? Um, and I find that I can't. I always fall back into whatever the pattern was, like going out of the room if it got tense, or seeing conflict as something I wanted to avoid, because conflict in my childhood meant if I continued in it, I would be punished, neglected, and in my little boy body, little child body, it was tantamount to being um, a survival thing that I needed to do to survive, to stay close to my abusers, because
so
they're what provided life. I didn't know the difference.
exactly. And so at the end of last week's podcast, we began to drill down into exactly what it is that we do in the intentional living work itself to help us, first of all, appreciate and understand and uh, validate those experiences that are still showing up now in these stubborn behavior patterns, or they might show up as stubborn thought patterns. The constant putting myself down, the constant that voice, "Who do you think you are? I'll give you something to cry about." That parental voice. So how do we befriend those voices? How do we, first of all, become aware of them, befriend them, and then how do we transform them into something that we actually want in our conscious adult mind? And so,
Correct.
so you started or you ended last week's podcast sharing how you first had this experience. You talked about you were in a violence cessation class that went on much longer than you originally intended to
Yeah.
participate because you were having some wow moments. And
Yeah.
you were last week we talked about wow moments are those moments when we actually have a, a blinding flash of the obvious insight of something about ourselves that we had either been avoiding, recognizing, or were in total denial of. And
Correct.
that when we have those moments, the truth of them is so obvious that our whole body resonates in a completely different way. And we might call that, oftentimes we call that relief. We just feel a sense of relief.
Yeah.
And so that was so if those of you who are watching this didn't get to see that last week, I refer you back to last week's episode. But today, we're going to drill down into how does how did you turn that experience into the process that we use now in our accountability practice meetings? And if I'm somebody seeking a similar kind of relief from myself, what can I expect when I come to a meeting?
Correct. Um, in my experience of this violence intervention class, um, every week we would come in and disclose if we had done any emotional, verbal, or physical violence, either to ourselves, to our partners. And in this class, I even included pets, like um,
Kicking
yelling
the
at a
dog?
dog or kicking a dog. Yeah. So that disclosure of the behavior that um, I was before in denial about, like dismissing somebody or kicking the dog. I didn't see that as violent. I said that's what the dog deserves, or that's how to teach a dog, or whatever my thought was. Um, in that repetition of disclosing what I call a character defect or something I really want to hide from people because I don't want them to know about me, um, it lost its power. I don't know if I could say this the right way, but I couldn't hide behind that anymore. Um, because one of the concepts that we were learning is that whatever behavior we do, it's a choice. And it did make sense to me at first that if somebody got into my vicinity, it justified my emotional or verbal violence or physical violence. And it didn't make sense to me that that was a choice. No, no, they made me, or I wouldn't have done it if they hadn't, which is blame. And we practice every week saying that it was our choice to be violent. It had nothing to do with anything they said or did. And it's like when I first heard that, I thought, no, that's bullshit. That's like okay, and I'll come back, but I'll straighten you out after a while. I'll bring it in. So that repetition of saying that it was my choice, the reality of that was, uh, based on what I know, I make choices. Now, if the choice is coming from unresolved trauma, which is in my subconscious, that falls in the realm of survival. And everybody knows that when we're in a death impending situation, that we react in a way. I got that reaction was a really quick choice based on survival, based on my belief system. Now, if somebody was coming at me with a knife, it's probably justifiable for me to knock them out or do something or avoid it or run. Um, when the toast is burned and I react as if somebody's coming at me with a knife, like screaming, yelling, running out the door, or abusing, which I thought was justifiable, but it's not. It's a reaction, and guess what? What's inside me always makes a choice, albeit an instantaneous choice. And in my repetition that it was my choice to be violent, it just slowly I got it that based on my experience, that was the best I had. That was the best choice I had. With the accountability and owning the character defect or the choice gave me more options. Like one of the examples I use, if I had trouble in a relationship, my two choices was hit it or leave it. And those are my options. Now I have more options. Now that I know that it's a choice, I can choose to take a breath, which is different. and I see things differently. Um, I can choose to listen without developing a response before the person's finished. I can choose to know that conflict is an ingredient of bonding and intimacy. I had no idea that those were options. One of the examples you used, and I don't know if it was in the last one or when we were talking, is that in our experience, we understand things through friction or contrast. And that friction or contrast or conflict was what I couldn't handle as a child. So I had to either shut down or act out, become a petulant little 8-year-old and be resistant or obstinate, which was my behavior. I remember Solomon, I was visiting here, and his mother
And
was holding him. I
and
think he
who's
was about
Solomon?
4 or 5. Solomon's my grandson.
Okay.
Um, he was 4 or 5, and she was holding him, and she played like she was going to drop him right in the middle of our conversation. And it startled him. She set him down, and then she was unloading the dishwasher, and she tried to put the dishwasher door closed, and he came over and just put his hand on it and leaned on it, like obstinate. What I thought, oh, okay, that's obstinate, and it surprised me. And I go, oh, I wonder, whoa, where'd this come from? And when I left and I was home, I thought, oh, he was scared, and we were all laughing, and he didn't know how to process that. So the only way he knew how to say, no, that wasn't okay, was the behavior of resistance or obstinate. And he did a couple of other things. And I called my daughter and I said, remember when you play dropped him? Um, do you think it might have scared him? And that was his way of dealing with that fear. And right on the phone, she called out to Solomon and said, hey, when Grandpa was here and I play dropped you, did that scare you? He goes, yes, I didn't like that. And she said, oh, I want to apologize. I'm sorry. I don't know how she said it, but she said, I'm sorry. And he was able to let that move through. Now, if we didn't know that, that would have been stuck in that little boy's body. And then we would have had a problem child. We got a problem child. It's like nothing's happening. And this kid's like, okay, and all that stuff that happened to me, I would have passed it on. But seeing that as a child, I wasn't able, and I was learning emotional regulation, which is what he did in that defiant behavior. He was learning how to process. And we were then his mirror and his guide, not his punisher. I got punished for that stuff. And so I had to, like, that got stuck in me. So something happens in my adult life. How do I act? I react. I raise my voice, or I walk out of the room, or I say, you don't know what you're talking about. I redefine somebody's reality. That's not true. I went into all kinds of resistant behaviors, avoidant behaviors, not knowing that I was avoiding feeling anything, scared, concerned. Um, and I actually believed that as a man, I don't feel things deeply, which is in alignment with my behaviors and trauma. But guess what? No, I do. I do feel things deeply. And I express what I feel through the masculine experience. It may be different than the feminine experience, and it's how I express through what I know, which who I am is the masculine experience. So I could, when something happened in my life that was either tragic or well, let's go with tragic. And I would watch all these people like cry or feel or go, oh my, and I wonder what the hell are they doing? Stuff happens. It's like, oh, they're feeling, they're in the event of their life. They're feeling something. They're feeling either loss or fear and they're expressing it. I didn't know how to do that. I just knew how to be tough. I knew how to be um, stoic. I don't know if stoic is the right word, but emotional is unexpressive. And expressive people actually scared me. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I need to get out of here. Yeah, oh no. So there's so many situations and events that happen, and there's so many different aspects of this that we can only talk about what's going on in here right now, and yet as we found out, we can still talk about this over a 6 year period and still have insights to the same thing and grow. Um, and my being accountable, which is what the intentional living meetings are now, accountability tree groups, it repetitively built new pathways in my the clinical new pathways in my synapses in my brain that were now part of my experience, which enabled me to see other options instead of the I'm screwed or I'm bad or it's you that are attacking me and you're bad, I'm bad or you're bad, which was my conclusion pre-recovery and well into my recovery that it was either me or you instead of, oh, it's something in me that needs healing, needs attention.
So the question is, how does, from a practical perspective, how do I counter all of this, work on this in an accountability practice meeting? What happens?
Okay. So when
And
I
maybe and
say
maybe even say, how's it different from a 12-step meeting?
it, yeah, okay. How it's different than a 12-step meeting. It's number one is facilitated by a peer, somebody who's gone through this. And um, I call it second level recovery. The other thing is when I own whatever the behavior is, like I'm mean, and I just say it, I'm mean, and I'm violent, or I'm blame free and judgment free. I just say I'm mean as an observation. That's what we gave Solomon when he was being obstinate, because we recognized that that was how he processed the fear because he didn't know how. He didn't know how. So, and when his mother asked him if he was scared, he could own he was scared, and we could nurture that. Tell him, oh, yeah, I get that. That would be scary, and the behavior stopped. Um, um, so that's what we're giving ourselves when we own what I call the result of my dysfunction, which for me was codependency, addiction, or some type of avoidant behavior. My grandson's avoidant behavior was leaning on the door so his mother couldn't shut it. Obstinate, we call that obstinate. It was an expression of his experience of fear, which is reasonable. It's like he didn't know what to do except he knew he was mad at something. I don't even know if it was conscious. And when we validated him, that energy was able to move through. So when I do the accountability tree and own an avoidant behavior, which being mean is an avoidant behavior, and what I'm avoiding is the experience of myself in the environment, in the moment, emotionally, feeling wise, and then the rational brain kicks in. Um, I'm giving to myself what we give to my grandson in the moment because my subconscious trauma doesn't tell time. It's so if something happens in my adulthood that is um, similar to something on a frequency level, tone level, some could be in somebody's voice or facial expression that caused pain in my childhood. It's happening right now in my subconscious. So when I own my reaction, my choice, and being mean is a choice, I'm giving to myself that mirror, that unconditional place of acceptance, and it validates the pain that happened for me. Oh my God, 60, 70 years ago. I'm 75 now, and what happened to me as a 5-year-old is still here, unresolved until I resolve it in this way, which is in adult children of alcoholics 12-step meeting is they call it the loving parent. Well, what's a loving parent? Well, what me and my daughter did with Solomon, that's a loving parent. That's being loving towards the child and explaining to the child that, oh, this is what happened. We're sorry. I don't remember her saying, I know that hurts, and it hurt him. He did the best he could to process it. And now it's not in him. Just like if I do the accountability tree, tell the truth, take a breath, because in the breath I'm not thinking or judging. I'm breathing. I'm consciously breathing. There's no critical mind going. And in that feeling tone of acceptance and love, I say to myself, it's a raise in frequency of acceptance, self acceptance, and other from others. I say, I intend to be kind has power because that intent goes back into where that subconscious wounding was that motivated the avoidant behavior to now say, oh, we can choose something different and still remain safe. Because I didn't think people, well, and it wasn't a conscious thought. Because if it was a conscious thought, I would have been expressing it. But it was, that's what denial is I don't know. It's not because I'm doing it on purpose. Denial means I don't know. What is it I don't know? That I'm reacting to an old unhealed wound that needs attention. And when I give it the attention, guess what? It the emotion knows how to move through my body when it's recognized and validated. Like me saying, I'm scared. Well, oh, of course you're scared. Of course, that was scary. That was you almost it's like you thought you were going to drop. That's frightening. Okay, all right. Then I get to be afraid, and nobody's going to reject me. In fact, they're going to go, "Oh, I'm sorry," or if I, impact it. I don't know. We don't talk like that to a 5-year-old, but that's the message. That behavior impacted you, and I'm going to let you know that it's not okay that I do that and change my behavior, and the child gets validated. So we're doing that for ourselves when we do the accountability tree process.
So the for the newcomer who's not had this experience yet, I'm going to interpret. Give you my sense of what you just said from the
Okay.
perspective of being in a meeting, and basically, we have facilitators because we don't expect anybody who comes into the meeting to know how to do the accountability tree.
Correct.
It's like and partly because, as you said, it starts out with our willingness to experience a feeling sensation in our bodies about an emotional challenge that we're undergoing that we otherwise would run away from or
Right.
find a way to numb out or to deny, as you said.
Yeah.
And so the experience that I've shared many times on the podcast in my meeting, my first memory of this, I don't know if it was my first experience with the tree, but this is the one that sticks out, was when I was going through serious financial trouble
Hmm.
and I was describing what was going on or what I thought was going on. And you said, would you be willing to consider that you like being in debt? And that led to a feeling, it's like I couldn't process that intellectually in the moment. It just, my whole body was seized up as if the truth had just been revealed to me. Like it was a wow moment.
Yep.
And I remember having a sensation of relaxation. I remember tears coming into my eyes. And
Yeah.
so now reflecting back on it, I was in a state of pure feeling. And I was not only in a state of pure feeling, but I was present with it. I
Hmm.
allowed it. I was incapable of thinking about it. I could only be in it. So, um, and then here's the thing, this is a secret sauce, folks, is that when we can get to that experience of pure feeling, and particularly because as you were telling us, this feeling has been something we've been denying, repressing for gosh knows how many years. Um,
Yeah.
when when we feel that pure sensation, we're actually, it turns out, we're now in the field of all possibility.
Yes.
We're in a field of limitless possibility. And that's why the second step of the process, now that I feel this truth, now that I'm in the truth, what is it I want becomes possible. A different want
Yeah.
becomes possible. Before that, there was
Yeah.
no room for something different. All there could be
Correct. Yeah.
was endlessly repeating the same fear, the same
Hmm.
story, the same feeling state. Now, all of a sudden, I could say, I want to be debt free. I intend to be prosperous. I intend to experience pure abundance, whatever it is. And that
Hmm.
now becomes possible in a way that, like 3 seconds ago, it was not.
Well, and the demonstration is, and I believe this to be true, is that you haven't been in debt since.
No, I have actually money in the bank and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
But, um, and that for me was the tip of an iceberg of which I was completely unaware because it turns out the money it wasn't the actual issue.
No.
It was, but until I could actually focus on that, that was what was bugging me. I brought that problem to the meeting. That's what we do in the intentional living meetings is we bring whatever it is that we're suffering about. It could be something like that. It could be, my wife is doesn't listen to me. My wife doesn't love me. My boyfriend is, stealing money. Whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And then we have the possibility of essentially bringing that to the accountability tree practice. As a
Hmm.
facilitator, one of us might say, okay, what's the real issue? What's really bugging you here? And guide us to, for me in this particular case, in the example I gave, to guide me to there's a part of me that likes being in debt.
Sure.
To
Yeah.
and
It, it,
that's
it could it could prove how industrious you are by working yourself out of it every time. Could and that's like being right or being a good man, being
right. Yeah.
okay. I can be a good man. I don't have to work myself out of debt. It's like and money's a big issue with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Finances. It's and
Money, relationships, and health. Those are probably
yeah,
the big three categories.
yeah, yeah.
But it can be anything.
Yes.
And so I just want to point out that the accountability practice itself, the tree as we call it, um, is a very simple process in outline. It's very simple. What's the truth? What's the story? How do I feel when I own the truth about what's going on with me? Feel the feeling and then be open to asking myself what do I want instead? So what
Right.
and then turning that into, I like to say we create a formal statement of intention
Yep.
because that has multiple efficacies. It not only creates a commitment or a relationship with the higher power, which is where the power to manifest what I want resides, but it also is an instruction to my subconscious to start reprogramming itself to this orientation. I intend to
Yes.
feel safe. I intend to feel kind. I intend to
Right.
feel peaceful.
Right.
And so slowly but surely over time, as I did that work, that's what started to show up for me instead of stress and fear
Yeah.
and hypervigilance, which is the world I used to live in. I don't
Correct.
live in that world anymore. And as you said, that stuff is still there. I don't know that we ever totally quote heal and quote all of our childhood trauma. And I don't know that we need to. Once we get to this process,
Hmm.
what I've discovered is that every time that unhealed trauma shows up, and often, and usually still shows up in ways that surprises me,
Yeah, yeah,
Partly because the other ways I'm used to. So it's like that unhealed childhood, the unhealed child is still looking for love, so he's still going to find a way to get it.
right.
But now, because I have the accountability tree process, whenever it shows up, I can just I have two options that I use immediately. Number one, I do the tree. How am I feeling? Just be in the feeling. What's going
Yeah,
on? Okay, and just feel it,
yeah,
and then ask myself, what do I want? And I can call somebody.
yep,
I can ask for help. I can go to a meeting. So the my relationship with the unhealed elements in my psyche is completely different from when I first started this process.
yep.
In fact, I my relationship with my unhealed psyche was utterly unconscious. I had no awareness of what was going on.
Yeah, that's yeah. Subconscious is you don't know.
Exactly. And so that's for me the power of the accountability tree. And for those of you again who are thinking about coming to a meeting, this is what you can expect. This is the way the process works. Um, and you know, you'll bring your own self to it. And we have people that come to meetings and never say a word. We have people that come to meetings and have a lot to say. There's no right way to do it. Um, there's no wrong way to do it. It's whatever's in the moment is pressing itself for you. Then you can participate in that kind of way.
Yeah, when I invite people to either invite other people or there's somebody there for the first time, I tell them you don't have to say anything. You can blank your screen, put yourself on mute, observe what we do here, and if there's you see any value for you, then come back. Um, because understanding this work, I'm, I'm still coming to an understanding of this work,
Right.
a deeper, broader understanding of the work,
Yeah.
um, and what's at stake. And it took repetition, either going to that violence cessation class I was talking about, or going to an ACA meeting, Adult Children of Alcoholics meeting, time after time. Whether I want, like you said, whether you want to go or not, I'm okay. I'm making the choice to go to the meeting. And through that persistence, things started changing. Through
Right.
that repetition, things started changing.
It's
So,
in essence, it's creating a new habit.
yes.
I mean, what is the old saw? You need 30 days to create a new habit.
Mhm.
This case, 30 days may not be adequate, but it takes that repetition and the doing it in a group setting allows the group energy, the group power, the group grace to augment and accelerate your own work. So
Yeah.
we're not doing this alone. So
Yeah.
as we come to the end of our time together, John, any last minute, uh, any wrap up, summarizing, last minute thoughts?
Um, I think it's what we just talked about is that in the 12 step AA or NA, their quote or their statement is more will be revealed. Um, and to expect myself, well, when I first went into 12 step, I thought, I'll do this for about 6 months, figure it out, and then I'll be on my way. That was 37 years ago. So more and more keeps being revealed about what I believe I understand about this process. I'm still being enriched by it, to things I didn't even know how to ask for before. I didn't even know were possible before. Now that realm of possibilities there, and I know, oh, if it happened like 10 years ago, I didn't know this, and I know it now. What did I do? Well, I kept showing up. So if I tell you what I want, if I'd have told you what I wanted 10 years ago, I would have missed out on everything I got because I couldn't have articulated it.
Right.
So more will be revealed. Keep
And
coming
so,
back.
thank you, John. So, if you want more to be revealed, we have four accountability practice meetings a week, all on Zoom. Information about time, dates, and Zoom room addresses will all be at the end of the podcast. So, please feel free to check those out, and we'd love to meet you and introduce you to this process from a direct and hands-on way. And
Yeah.
with that, we will say goodbye and see you at the next one.
Yes. Thank you, Marty.
You bet. Thank you, John.